What started as a leak in the west has turned to a flood in the south. Find out the details this week on the Indy Ball Report podcast. All right, we are back again, 253. That's the episode number. And we continue the march on into the void, really.
Into the void is where you went with that. See, you could have gone, we're marching south, or call up the Union Army or marching south or something like that.
Away down south in the land of traitors?
Or my proposed intro, which was, hey girl, how you feel about some southern expansion? To which I'm sure the reply would have been, yeah, but you can't afford it, which is fair.
Yeah, it's fair.
Which
very fair.
Is fair. We're talking ballparks.
First off, we have a leak in the West, and that is the extra California team in the Pioneer League. I say extra, so they added another one. No, this is just the second one. And then we've got a slew of expansion rumor for this southern part of the United States. There's a couple other bits of news in there, like Sioux City's lease getting worked out. That's pretty cool. And then there's some front office shakeups around the world of Indy Ball. So there's a lot going on this week, so I suppose we probably should get started on that before we waste any more time like we already have. On Monday, Pioneer League put out a post that was kind of a get to know the Pioneer League post. And it was only up for a few minutes. But unfortunately for them, I'm a bum that gets up in the middle of the day, right when they post their stuff. So I saw it right as it came out, and I screenshotted one very interesting slide, which was a map of the league. And this map had a second California team right outside of where Sacramento is. So I think it's fair to deduce that that city listed, which is Davis, California, might just be that extra team out there in California for the Ballers to play.
Sir.
So
I mean,
yeah, that was a bit of an awkward trip there, but I'm just going to end it with, I have to imagine some social media manager had a really bad day on Monday.
Yeah. I've nearly done that before, and even just nearly doing it's a bad feeling. So that's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's a bad day. And I mean, a lot of people already knew, and that's also part of why, like, I don't know how that even happens. It's a bad vibe.
Yeah.
This isn't a big surprise also. I mean, there's only so many places you can go in that area. Sacramento's always been the rumor. UC Davis is right there. It's a quality. Actually, I feel like it's a better, who knows whether they have access to and what the exact deal is going to end up. But UC Davis is definitely a better field setup than Oakland has. So that's kind of an interesting little thing for the Davis team being sort of positioned as like the add-on team. And it might even not even be a big deal if they don't do that great, as long as Western expansion works out.
I mean, I also understand though why Davis is kind of like the secondary one, even though they're playing in that D1 field.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I kind of get it though, because I mean, Oakland's a sexier name. It's a bigger headline grabber than Davis, California. Then also you figure you're fighting with the River Cats a bit. Now I don't know exactly how close they are. I think it's probably like a 30-minute drive, but with traffic, who knows how far that actually is. So perhaps you're going for two different groups, like the people in Rockland, New York aren't the people that the Miners are fighting to get in the ballpark. So perhaps it's a situation like that. And also, I mean, AAA versus Pioneer League ball is a little bit of a skill gap in there.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, as we've mentioned numerous times before, the overall consumer base for independent ball is just kind of people looking for something to do, as opposed to real baseball fanatic people. Although I imagine AAA probably draws a few more prospect watchers in that sense. But even still, like, I understand it from a marketing perspective. Oakland's a better thing to market. I mean, we're already seeing the Coliseum thing still going on. I mean, we had, who is it? The city council that wants an explanation for it or something along those lines was the headline this week from them. So, like, I totally get it. It's just like, I like Davis a little bit better if that's the case.
Yeah. It's just going to be tough to compete with like the existing markets, which is something that Oakland weirdly doesn't have.
But they have it, but they don't have it.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's the thing. They're competing against Ghost and the Giants, which are just kind of different things.
it's trying to establish a brand. And my weird take on this is it's better to have your own ballpark, which is obvious for many reasons. But one of the other things is like, I mean, the entire town of Hagerstown has been aware of this team coming since, if they didn't know even before, since, all that construction started. Like, it is a reminder in everyone's face that like the baseball team is coming. Like, it's a little more difficult if you just drop in on the local college team and just start playing pro baseball. And people are like, what is this happening?
What's going on?
What is this? Now from school, you can't even slow roll it as easily. It's just, this is happening. It's right here. These are the dates. Here's the schedule. Here's what Indy Ball is, by the way. I got to teach them that. Like,
yeah.
The biggest draw, honestly, could be people coming to see the Oakland team.
Yeah.
They neither of them have the best of both worlds. It's like they each kind of have divided it up, where Oakland, I think, has a lot of promise, except for where they're playing out of. It makes me like, oof, I'm not sure about that. And then UC Davis. It's, by the way, it's not the fanciest park. UC Davis is a pretty good ball club, if I remember. I would have thought the stadium was a little fancier, but it's still 3,500 seats, all that, which would be great to have in Oakland.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. Like, Laney College isn't the best of venues, and like I understand it's probably like a temporary thing. Yeah, but at the same point in time, it's also like the initial response is what's going to guide you the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And more than that, though, even if you did Laney College for 1 year and you're still riding off the screw the A's high, which, I mean, let's acknowledge that's going to be there. If you had a better plan for year 2 and 3 that wasn't Laney College, I'd feel more optimistic about it. But like, what's the other plan?
Yeah, but they could stumble right back into the thing I was saying about Hagerstown, where at least, it could be a project, whether it's a renovation or a new one or a new stadium where everybody is, waiting for it, and it is in everyone's face. So there could be something.
Yeah, I don't know about it. Like, genuinely, like, I don't understand, like, whether or not that makes a difference really in the long run. Like, I understand the difference between establishing a new brand and like coming into a market that just lost the brand. I get the difference there, but like on this particular kind of level, does it really make a difference when the drop off is so steep that you might as well be building a new brand? And in a market where no one was really clamoring for another team, I don't think there was really any sort of a demand for Davis. So like, it feels kind of like the situations aren't really comparable to Hagerstown in that sense, where like Hagerstown, yeah, they may have known about it, they may have seen the thing going up and everything about it. They may have been able to kind of like get excited for it in that regard. But like, the situations I think are so vastly different in that regard. Because at least with Hagerstown, you have, shiny new ballpark. At the very least, it's like a draw. What the hell's the draw for the either one of them? You see what I'm saying? Like, there isn't like the carrot outside of like sight and like, new team.
Doesn't help that it's going to be really hard to not have the, like, how should I say this? Just the vibe that this isn't the team that's there to justify the Oakland expansion. It's going to be tough to make it not feel like it's the Seattle Pilots expansion when they came into being, because Kansas City was like, no, we want a team now. So the MLB was like, okay, Seattle, go now, even though you're not ready. It's going to be tough, I think, to not have that vibe. Here's the question, though, I just thought about.
The problem the A's cost.
Do you think, good point. Do you think the Davis team will have an owner? Because that will tell us everything.
I think if they don't, we won't get told that.
Well,
I think
we'll get told that. They might not announce that.
That's the thing. That's what I'm saying.
I believe in us.
Like, I was like, we saw with Oakland, how I was like, we got everybody out in full force. Then I don't think we're getting that same rollout for Davis, which I do feel bad about having to do all this to Davis and like really undercutting that announcement, which I'm sure they're really building to and looking forward to. Although also kind of on them for not bumping up the timeline, but whatever. But yeah, to answer the question, I wouldn't be stunned if there isn't an owner, and this is just like a collective league effort to like agree, like, okay, we want Oakland. Oakland can't be on its own. Let's all just pitch in for 1 year, and then we'll make this thing work, and then we'll sell it off, and then we'll be done with it. Although I will say, when we get into the expansion conversation later on, if they want to keep doing the West Coast thing, I think there's a couple of Oregon markets that are going to be open soon that do make some sense.
I'm going to be such a wet blanket on that. I am going
to
preview that now. I'm so sorry. Yeah. I've been really into the Oregon markets, and unfortunately, I think these are the two markets that I don't think are going to work out of all the Oregon markets. But we can
we'll get to that later on. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll come back.
That was a little teaser, but you and I might have some opposing thoughts on that, so that's fine.
Oh,
I'm not the expert.
We have any more thoughts on this Davis thing? Like, how confident are we that this is going to actually work out, not just be like the crutch for Oakland for a little while?
I think it's 70-30 that it's the crutch.
70-30 crutch? Mm-hmm. I'm going to give it 60-40.
Okay. Yeah, that feels about right.
It's like, the only thing is, like, I think there is a case for it. It's just like, man, it feels like we're just throwing it out here for Oakland. Like, we wanted Oakland and we needed it. Like, just the situation as it exists makes me feel like it is the case.
If they nail this rollout, though, it could feel totally different. So we'll see.
Fair.
This could just be because it's been, from our perspective, we've had a leak that's Davis in this format. From our perspective, here's the asterisk upon our whole conversation for those listening.
Yeah.
Almost immediately, it was clear this was going to be a Sacramento area team. It was always officially said it was going to be Northern California. So with me having no life, I don't know how deep you went in. I immediately started comparing baseball schedules. UC Davis was quickly shortlist of possibilities. We both had from different sources it leaked that it was going to be Davis to us.
Yeah.
Then this is leaked on there. So from our perspective, this feels like a slow and sloppy rollout. However, for others, it doesn't. It was just said that, hey, there's going to be an announcement about the new team and location. Stay tuned. And so, it could be, they could still nail the rollout depending on the vibe, depending on the ownership situation, all that. So we could be a little too negative because our perspective is skewed. Also, with the Pioneer League starting later, how late this rollout is happening isn't a big deal either.
Yeah, that is a fair point. The later rollout doesn't matter in that sense, but I will say this much. I would have liked to have seen this come, like when the leak was, I would have liked to see the formal announcement. And for no other reason, just to get more brand familiarity rolling with it. Right. Because you did have some momentum coming off of Oakland and a couple of the, whether it's a promotional stunt or a genuine attempt type of thing from Oakland. With the Coliseum, you could have built off of that with Sacramento, and then maybe you could have worked something out with more of a middle ground place. I'm not sure there's a huge promotional venue that could, have that same kind of clout that the Coliseum would have among Oakland fans and Davis fans in an in-between area, but that could have worked out there, and you could have made some sort of announcement with that. You could have done something to build off existing PR work. It's more or less my point.
Davis, California is in Yolo County. Feels like you could do something funny with that.
They should totally be calling this team the Yolo something.
I really want it to be like
Yolo Yahoos.
If you're just all in on a bad brand, you should just throw a last name on it. Like it's just some dude's Davis something, but it's just the team name. I'm dumb. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
The Davis Johnsons.
Yeah, why not? Let's get weird.
You could do that. I'm honestly still on like the Yolo Yeehaws.
Fair.
Kind of do like the old like gold minor look to it.
Yeah. You got to be careful out there. That the only branding thought I have is weird California history knowledge. It's like you got to be careful out there with your branding. So you can't do anything like Pioneer based really, because that area, I think specifically even that county was the epicenter of bad stuff happening with the Native Americans. Like I think it's officially maybe listed as a genocide out there. Like, so they're going to be careful with the branding out there. The, what's that called? The, hold on. I might have a thought here. The penny farthings. That would be kind of amazing because it's literally on the Davis, California flag. One of those bikes with the big little back wheel, big front wheel. The Davis penny farthings, even though that might be tough for branding because I'm sure there's a bunch of other like Google results that would come up.
I say bikers, but California's got a history of bike gangs, so that's not going to work.
And also, bicycling controversy with their bicycle infrastructure, which is another thing. Don't get me started. I don't know the background on that as well. I just remember coming up once in a social studies class I did not pay attention to.
I want to say I'm surprised, the inner workings of California culture and politics, but at the same point in time, I'm also equally as unsurprised by it.
I mean, yeah, if it's useless knowledge, I might be your guy. What is it? What did my dad describe me as once? You are a font of useless information. I was like, thank you. I think I'll take that as a compliment from my dad.
I just want to point out here, you could tell me about like the Davis City flag, but you can't remember to charge your mic separately from another mic.
You guys can't remember which core belongs to what. I got one right this week. So, hey. So
to wrap up this Davis conversation, because we do have other things we do.
Yeah, we have so much more we need to get to and not a ton of time.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up here, it'll depend on the brand rollout and how everything goes with the limited information we have at the moment, which is really, we know where the team's going to be. And we also know the manager of the team too. I should say that much, but that I got from like 3 different people. So I'm not going to take that from them. We already took their big thing from them early on. It does feel like this is just more of an accessory to Oakland. Hopefully that'll be proven incorrect sooner than later.
Well summarized.
Moving on, Long Island. They have a small shakeup in the front office. Sean Smith moves to the GM role. Anthony Polito will move to an assistant GM and stadium operations position. Sean Mulhall will go to group sales manager. Justice Layer will go to ticket sales manager. And Augie Fertugno will move to promotions manager. Michael Pfaff stays with the team as the president and chief business officer. And Doug Cohen stays on as a senior vice president. More or less the big news is Pfaff shifting his
absolutely.
Role. That's the really big
he was
here.
Formerly the president and GM. Now he's president and what's chief business officer, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, that's big. It's regardless of your feelings on the league or the team, I don't know anybody who would deny how integral to the Long Island Ducks successes and what's the other word I'd want to use? The
importance.
Yes,
stature.
We'll go with importance. Yeah, stature. That was perfectly done, man. Yep. Hell, that's why it's your show, man. That Pfaff has contributed. He's been really central to all that over the past. I mean, good Lord, how long has he been there? However long, since early, and yeah, that's kind of wild to see. It's more surprising, I would say, than the Wally Backman move.
Oh yeah,
and we were all kind of like, "Oh wow, that's happening!" Wow.
I mean, that honestly almost makes the Wally back move a little bit more surprising because you feel like, okay, if you're gonna move Wally out, that means we're not gonna see many other changes because I think our general consensus was Wally's relationship with the front office may not be what we thought it was, and now to see him go out, but also at the same point in time, like, okay, we're gonna shift around the front office, and it's like, okay, what's going on over there? And also, just as a point of reference, Pfaff's been in Long Island since November of 2002. Overlapping with that, he was also the owner / managing member of the New Britain Bees from 2015 to 2021.
Yeah.
And he was a consultant on a couple other, with Bridgeport and the Bears too, for what that's worth.
Yeah, it's all fascinating to me. It's still a surprise. I don't know. It's so weird that I'm like, this is an impactful thing, but I don't necessarily have a lot of constructive stuff to say about it because who knows what is going on inside the Long Island front office at any given time. If it's not affecting every single other team in the league, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what's happening, if that makes sense. And that is
the league
from
doesn't
outside
come from
the
Long
league,
Island; it comes from other people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so it's tough to exactly even predict what happened there. Who is willing to make the move? This could be him like, hey, I want to step back. He does seem like he's a very hands-on guy. Yeah, it's just surprising. And I'm interested to see, this could be one of those things. Every once in a while, you'll see a front office move and then immediately like a year or two later, it's like, and we're going to undo that, or we're going to try this change again. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see that with, speaking of like Alabama and New England, moving on, like have a coach. I'm like, okay, that wasn't the right fit. Like almost forgetting how to operate without that person being the sort of the guiding.
You never want to be the guy that replaces the guy. You want to be the replacement guy's replacement, because the pressure is now gone.
Yeah. How about Frank Bolton still getting involved?
I mean, is that really that shocking?
No, not really, but also mildly disappointing.
Mildly disappointing.
Just like it could use the new guard. That's all. But again, it's his money. He's involved. So.
Fair.
And he's been, that's not to say he hasn't basically saved the league when we created and then saved it multiple times, stepping in, like saved Bridgeport there for a year or so, like, and Newark. But you can go, that guy is integral and still go after you say it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say it. I'll just say this, and then we'll go back to talking about Long Island. Miles Wolff knew when to step away.
Yeah.
He knew when to step away from the association and said, all right, my time's done.
Though I do wonder if Miles Wolff had a different financial situation.
He did, but that's
when
a
it
different
comes
situation.
to the way the league worked.
If you read his book, he did.
Okay. So I guess to summarize on the Long Island point, and especially, I guess, specifically to Michael Pfaff, he's somebody who was a fierce defender and promoter and supporter of the Atlantic League. And whether everybody has necessarily agreed with his feelings on the matter or tactics on the matter, that's one thing. He always fiercely backed Long Island. Remember during COVID, he was right out there like fighting with Long Island politics to get games going. So, and while we can feel how you want to feel about that, at the end of the day, he was working to save jobs, and that's in fighting for his people. And I think that is the type of guy he is. If a lot of people have run afoul of him, afoul, like a bird, like a duck. But I don't think, and most people that I run into where, there's some hard feelings, and, maybe I've crossed them once or twice, and a lot of people I know have been like, oh, I don't know about all that. He, for the most part, does it for, he's fighting for his organization. And that's something that, I can understand. I've done myself, and I respected that a couple of times. I do think he might contribute here and there. And he's still the president, he's still there, to like the no fun league reputation that sort of the Atlantic League and NFL seem to share. But that's a different thing entirely. I think on the whole, it will be interesting to see how Long Island proceeds from here, because he is he seems to be a real cornerstone of that organization.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, he is and always has been extremely good at his job, and his job is to go to bat for, Long Island, as you mentioned, and he does a very good job of it. So I have no real strong opinion on it. I definitely think he's one of the power players in the league. And what's interesting is, like, every once in a while you could tell who listens to the show by like how a team responds, like if we say something. Long Island doesn't necessarily do that, but they pay attention to everything. And I think that kind of goes to speak to like the attention to detail inside the organization and the culture that starts from the top down, in that you check everything and anything that could possibly affect the team and the brand, and you defend it. And that's why I feel like even a team president or a chief business officer role, I feel like it's not that terribly different of a position from what he was already doing as a GM, in the sense of, I think he's still going to have a lot of a hands-on experience with it. I think we just need to change the title in order to keep someone from leaving.
Fair. And I also think it's
his team together.
And I think it's also, maybe pulling up if we're looking how he was deep in how deep he was digging into like the day to day. It's pulling that back up a little bit and maybe spreading that wider, like letting him cast a wider net, because he is so experienced, and he is a guy you want on your team for sure. So maybe get his hands into more things on a higher level, rather than maybe every little thing on the ground level where it's like, okay, like maybe, I mean, at Long Island, you would often see him, I mean, all over the ballpark at a game. Like, even I was surprised when I was there. I was like, damn, like he's
moving around. He's grooving.
I was like, is he down here? Like, it's interesting. Like, and that's not unfamiliar. It's not super unique, but it is. You can tell. Like,
yeah, but it is a micromanaging level.
It is. So that's fascinating. But so
I mean,
yeah,
like,
I see the logic
too. If he has the template already set up for like, okay, this is how the game day is supposed to run. This is how things are supposed to go. If you have a guy that you're like, okay, he's been here for a while too. He knows the template. He knows how to run it. Let him go do that. I got other things I got to handle. What I want to kind of point out is what's the other things he has to handle that he has to get bumped up to spend the attention, the time on.
Yeah.
And is it just a Long Island thing or is it a league thing?
Wouldn't be surprised to see him as like, wouldn't you put him as maybe not the favorite, but a favorite to one day replace Rick White?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think he's on the short list.
Right. For sure.
I'm trying to think of other people that would be on that short list. And yeah, I'm having a hard time of adding names to it. He's just a clear and obvious front runner.
Yeah. And he already has the pre-existing relationship with
Frank.
Frank. So yeah,
it's an interesting setup there. I mean, Long Island's not the only team also making moves in the front office too. Washington did a whole slew of both business and baseball side moving guys up and down.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw another Frontier League team that was doing some movement around too. So there's definitely, I don't want to say a slew, but there's definitely the start of the movement season in that regard. But it's just when you're talking about Long Island, they're just kind of so omnipresent, I guess, in independent ball and such a touchstone for it, where it's hard to really like ignore them when they make a move, especially when they move around people that are very clearly critical to their success.
I mean, there's so few people that even within, let's just limit the conversation to Indy Ball circles, that you could say a front office executive and everyone's like, oh yeah, like even in other leagues, most people are like, oh, Michael Pfaff, yeah, Long Island. Yeah. That's crazy to think about. Also, I said that the NFL comparison with completely forgetting that he started his career with the NFL.
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
7
I just
years.
Remember that. Yeah.
Well, we know where it was learned.
Yes, he's learned from the best / worst.
He probably had a couple of fun ideas, like we could do this, and just like, what the hell are you on right now?
New York, I was thinking was though, huh? St. John's.
Go Johnnies.
Oh,
Red Storm.
Yeah. How about it?
Can't use the old name.
I never mind. I spent some time at St. John's, and it's just like, it's a funny place. It's such a weird spot to just drop a full on college with like D1 sports in the middle of.
Pride of Queens. Well, we got the next bit of news. We got Sioux City. They signed a 9-year lease extension with a 3-year option attached to it. They originally wanted a 12-year lease. The city was like, we'd like to not have a lease that extends through 3 city councils. How about we do 9 and 3-year instead? And they're like, okay, $100,000 a year. It's due on May 1st. Unanimously passed in the lease. Other important details from it. A section of the stadium rent will go towards stadium repairs. The Explorers are responsible for maintaining and repairing the stadium. AC and heating will be provided by the city, so they will furnish the stadium with those HVAC necessities. Also, the city of Sioux Falls will get 400 complimentary tickets a year and 400 tickets for any 2 dates to use as well. So there's a couple other details in there that explains, like, okay, if there's an incidental, how much of the incidental is the Explorer's responsibility. If it's a permanent fixture, it's up to $1,000 and the city will cover the rest. There's smaller details like that. They mentioned that new seating was put in, which was something that a couple of years back, if y'all remember, was a point of contention as well. Just a bunch of kind of minute details like that were in the articles linked in the show notes, of course, as well. So, Sioux City, they went from seemingly dead to alive and well for at least, I guess, till 2033.
I will. So I don't have much to say on this because it's status quo, but
yeah,
we did get a lot of pushback for us reacting like this could be in trouble. This deal's in trouble. And I don't think that was fair because one, those posts made by players and coaches around the organization were feeling very negative about the situation. And two, this just got done, halfway through the off season. And they did have a back and forth. They didn't get exactly what they wanted. And the city, when they were like, can we get this thing done sooner? Can we bump up the date? The city was like, we're not going to do that. Easy now. There are a few people who really jumped on us like, no, it's a done deal. Look at the two offers on the table. And I'm like, maybe it's not about the offers on the table. Maybe it's about the people making the offers, right?
Why? Because one of the people making the offers had previously threatened to relocate the team if they didn't get new seating in a stadium.
Yeah, right. But whatever. It's fine. I this is good. I'm not upset about this at all. It's a good thing, I think, for the league. It's a good thing for the team. It's a good thing for the city. This is good. Good thing for the fans. That's nothing but the best. You're hoping the relationship with the city can kind of remain healthy. Having 9 years does sort of take the pressure off and lets everybody, you're not thinking about how every action is going to affect the negotiations down the road. It can be more like a partnership than it is a negotiating back and forth, knowing that you're about to be possibly against each other in negotiation. So hopefully this will give some breathing room and allow some things to air out and the necessary improvements to be made in both the relationship and the ballpark. It is interesting they didn't get all the years they asked for. They asked for 12, got 9. Interesting that they weren't fully able to look forward to 2024 until now because no one comment. What was it?
Yeah, for Montgomery, where he was calling everybody saying that it's all done. That was the other part of it. We were right to go ahead and hold the original opinion we had. When you have a manager going, even when we were in the negotiation phase, I wasn't totally sold on it. And I mean, if you look at the transactions, I don't think Sioux City's been overly active.
Yeah, I agree. They didn't seem super urgent about it, and they weren't really interested in doing it at the convenience of the organization, it seemed like.
Yeah, that and the thing is, even just from a roster perspective for the Explorers, they weren't active in building a roster really until after this got done. Like the day this got done, they announced 2 new signings.
Yeah.
So like, what is that saying?
Though it sounds like at least they were confident enough to do some work on the, behind the scenes. They just weren't trying to announce it until. Yeah.
Still though, I mean, I think that speaks to like, okay, we weren't wrong to think like, oh, this could be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. The more I think about it, I'm glad we took the opportunity to be like, we weren't wrong. Okay. This maybe not the best podcast content, but for the record, we're
taking a victory lap. Screw that.
We never said it wouldn't happen. We're just like, hey, this is worth noting. They need to get this thing resolved.
To be fair, we did say at one point, it looks very bad right now.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it looks bad. That's just the optics were not good.
Yeah. Let's see, 5, 6. I got 7, 8 guys signed, 9, 10 guys signed. I'm just keeping track of guys that were signed here. 12. Okay, so there's a decent amount of guys. I just must have missed it because there were some important things happening. Yeah, I only got 13 guys signed prior to the thing. Number may go up here in a second, but yeah, I got 13 guys signed prior to the announcement. Now, I don't know how that compares to the rest of the American Association, but
yeah, I mean, I could kind of pull that, but we'll see. Off the top of my head, yeah, that's less than normal for the league, but it's not like there's no movement happening. It's fine, is what I'd say.
Yeah, it's cautious movement.
Well said.
So
a little bit of hesitancy there, which I think says a lot.
But yeah, I just find it very interesting though that like normally when you get like a lease deal announced, like yeah, it got all the details we get in it, but like the public press facing is never like, by the way, here's how the maintenance is going to be broken down as to who's responsible. Here's how the expenditure is broken down. Right. Like we don't get that breakdown, but that was something that was very clear and evidently reported. It's just like, okay.
I'll back off what I just said, by the way. That's about right for the league at this point. Okay. I thought there were more. The problem is the American Association, I'm still about 3 or so weeks behind on it, but yeah, it's about average, I guess, for the league at this point.
Okay.
I'm used to the Frontier League, which is the one I just redid, where a lot of those guys are getting retained because there's less of the American Association just has a little more, cut the bottom half of your roster and rebuild that. I feel like year to year.
Fair enough.
Neither here nor there. Sorry, that was unnecessary detail, but here we are.
Yep. Which can I just point out one thing here? And it's admittedly a little off topic, so I'll try to keep it under 5 minutes here, and then we'll.
Oh God, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short. I'm actually going to genuinely keep it short. Okay. I was catching up on the Real Cat Talk podcast, mentioned before, Calico guy, right? And I missed the one from October, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I'll go back and listen to this. That way, I don't have to start this giant hardcore history one that's 6.5 hours long. I'll just listen to this half-hour one real quick." And it must have been the one after, we first mentioned the show. I was like, actually, it was a pretty good show one night, and you went something to the extent of, "Yeah, I was happily surprised at the quality," and apparently. He mentioned that, and it's just like, I don't blame Ryan for being surprised about, it's Gary and the Rail Cats, and I'm just like some guy, I don't blame him. I was just like, God damn.
Yo, we should have him on, by the way. Why not? Bring him in for the American Association preview, man.
I know, that way you could be like, I'm surprised at the quality of your show. Or you could tell them that to your face.
At the very least, we will just do no work previewing Gary and just completely lean on him. And and it will be funny because it'll be like, well, at least he's the expert on it, but also there'll be that moment of him being like, oh Jesus, they didn't even look at the roster, huh?
They're like, yeah, so where exactly is Gary again?
And this is Detroit area, right?
Oh, wow, that's cool. Be like, so how do you spell Gary again? With a G. Okay, with a G. I thought it was a J.
Gary or Jerry?
Like me. Yeah. So you're telling me they play in U.S. Steel Yard, like an actual steel yard? Yeah. So just to wrap up the point.
Ballpark talk after this. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll wrap up the Gary point and the Sioux City point on. We may have been a little harsh early on. Some of us may have been pleasantly surprised at the quality that came of it, but in the end, we're all happy with the results.
Yeah, that'll work.
That's what we'll go with. So let's get on to the part where everybody was expecting this show to run long at, and what I think everyone really was looking forward to, which is expansion talk, because everyone loves talking about expansion. And this really doesn't have much structure at all, this section, as though the past hour of the show had any structure. But we have several MILB teams moving.
Mm-hmm.
We have several other teams that could be in danger of moving. And then we got a bunch of other markets that are very much open. They're all in the southern U.S. to bring it back to that cold open. It started with the leak of the Davis team, the newest team. And now it led to a flood of potential teams, all of which are in the south with the exception of at least Hillsborough Hops and Eugene Emeralds, which are the two Oregon markets from earlier that Ryan's supposedly about to throw a wet blanket on.
I mean, is that what we're talking about? We're talking about the West Coast part?
You might as well start West Coast. That's the shortest part of it.
I was so expecting you to go south and you changed on me the last second. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Zig instead of Zach.
I do neither. I just right through it. We're talking about it was Hillsborough and Eugene both sort of getting some movement on new ballparks. So the city asking voters to approve some movement on a new ballpark in Eugene, and the Hillsborough Hops pushing Oregon legislature on new ballpark funding. Those are the two basic headlines. And we have talked in the past about we are talking westward expansion for the Pioneer League. We see they're in California, obviously, already. We hinted at, Oregon feels like the right move. If you're looking to go west, northwest area, that seems obvious. But there are multiple markets. There's the Portland market. There's the town outside of that. And then there's
Hillsborough is just outside Portland.
Yeah. So Hillsborough and Eugene, if I recall, but I know Hillsborough, that's been the one I typically mention. It does have really good fan support. They seem to be doing great, good branding, all that. My concern is I don't know. There just doesn't seem to be any reason that they would leave affiliate ball. Both teams were short season A, I think, and then came up. Now they're high A. That's a better thing for them. They've got the development, contract with MLB teams. So there just doesn't seem like a reason for them to go anywhere. In my mind, unless I'm way off here, it just, I don't know why they would ever end up independent, and I don't see an independent team going to fill a ballpark if one of them move instead of renovating, because I don't think either of this team, or those cities rather, have a need for two teams.
Here's the thing.
Am I missing anything? What do you got?
Here's the thing, because you notice in the One Ballpark Digest, please unblock me, article here, they quote another statement from the local press and from their GM for Hillsborough, which is they were supposed to meet the standard last year, meaning 23, and they were supposed to meet them this year, meaning 24, and now we're supposed to meet them in 25. So it comes a point where they're just going to say enough is enough, them meaning MLB. Long and short is the ballpark does not meet the standard. So if they don't get the $15 million investment to actually do the ballpark over, they're just going to have the license pulled. MLB may like the market. They may want to be in that market because, it helps develop a baseball fan base in the largest city in Oregon, probably the second largest in the Pacific Northwest, but not including Canada and Vancouver as part of that. But, excluding them, U.S. Pacific Northwest, Portland's second biggest. So I get not wanting to leave there, but they're also not going to allow the Hops to be the example set that, we'll make an exception. They're not making exceptions. They're going to be ruthless about it, as we've seen in the past, where it's just like, don't meet it, you're gone. So when that happens, if they don't get that 15 mil, they're going to need a place to go. Pioneer League fits that mold. That's my theory on that one. As far as Eugene goes, I think that's a little bit more of an ask. They also are looking for 15 mil, but you're counting on a lot of other additional money. It's 15 from the city, 35 from the county, 13.5 from the Emeralds themselves, 7.5 are from the state, 1.5 from the Fed. That's a lot of money that's going to start adding up there. I mean, we're looking at what? About 65 million or so, if I'm not mistaken. So actually, I think it's a little bit more. It's about 72 million when everything's all said and done. So that's a lot of money. And like the proposed budget for the ballpark itself, according to the Baseball Digest article here, is 90.3 million. An additional 10 million is proposed for other fairground improvements. And that means there's a funding gap of possibly 33 million. And again, they're supposed to be in compliance by the end of 25. The voting for Eugene can't be approved until May 24th, the earliest. So that brings us to a position of, if the ballot measure does get there in May, if it fails in May, you're going to have to scramble to go ahead and put together another one and do a radical change, depending on the margins of the vote, in under a 12-month period to get the improvements done, and then try to get a stay of execution, essentially, until 26, and then rush to get all the construction done. So, I understand, neither market really makes sense to leave, but the ballpark is what matters. And if they don't meet the standard, MLB will just shit can them. They've kind of shown that in the past. There's plenty of markets they don't want to leave. They left because of the ballpark itself.
So here's the thing, though. My pushback to that would be they've already been not the standard once and still got selected. The issue is there's really no other option. Where else would Arizona go? Where else would San Francisco go for their minor league team? I mean, I'm assuming Stockton is going to remain with the A's when they make their move, because the same conversation, where would they go for another minor league team? I just don't think there's as much competition for another team. And that's where this whole thing kind of comes to a head, where it's, but okay, so what are you going to do then? You're going to find another place with better facilities, or some other place that's willing to throw that much money into facilities to take the spot away from one of these other cities? I just don't find that likely.
Well, what league do they play in currently?
They're both high A.
Yeah, no, but I mean, what league in?
League. It's the Northwest League for both.
Northwest League. Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure that, because I just wanted to look it up to see what else is in the Northwest League footprint.
Maybe Corvallis. I don't know what, but like if you're a summer league team, there's no way your
Here's the
ballpark's going
thing.
to upgrade like that. Like that's the other thing is
There's only 6 teams in that league, though.
they're basically
8 teams
still
in that league.
closer, and that league
No,
probably
6
wouldn't
teams.
exist if those teams weren't already like, no, we want our team there, like we want our affiliate team in this footprint.
Am I crazy to say they would just steal like Glacier?
So that was my next point. I was going to say the alternative and what could throw some chaos in, and I think it's less likely that they would take Glacier.
Well, new ballpark, though.
It's more likely for it to be, honestly, I think it's probably more likely to be Oakland or the A's moving, but they don't have a good relationship now with the Pioneer League. So that complicates that. So I was going to say, I could see Oakland trying to grab a different team than Stockton, for theirs. But again, the complication comes down to weird things. Like, all right, I guess it wouldn't be that big of a deal. You'd have to put in grass.
Yeah.
Like weird stuff. Like all the development league teams are having grass right now.
Here's the thing, like, I'm looking at this here, like what the footprint is, and like, there's definitely like cities that could host it, but they would need to build a ballpark, and most of them are in Oregon. So if Oregon's going to spend money on building a new ballpark, they just build them for the communities that already have them.
And see, there's so many things, so many alternatives. That's all. That's why I'm kind of a wet blanket.
I understand the apprehension to it, but like at the same point in time, I'm not entirely willing to just like write off the idea of them getting dropped.
By the way, Boise wouldn't be a bad option for Vegas.
They wouldn't be, but at the same time, is their ballpark up to standard because they got cut already? So, like,
yeah,
I mean, it improvements.
It depends how interested they'd be in making improvements. And again, all these teams getting cut probably weren't super interested in making improvements in the first place. Very few of them are Hagerstown, where they got dropped and were immediately like, "Oh, we'll build a new ballpark." Sorry, it's just not something you find. And that's why I think every ballpark that doesn't have a team now, for the most part, there's a reason they don't have one when it comes to affiliated teams. And there's things keeping people from switching. That whole Northwest League exists. It's weird to have a 6-team minor league on multiple levels, but they exist because there was certain passionate West Coast teams were like, no, we need a team out here. We want them here and not, in the Midwest, which was probably the alternative.
Fair. It's just, you start... The issue I always have with the hang-up is MLB doesn't really care if they piss people off. So, like...
But the team has to be on board, too. That was the whole thing, because a lot of these teams try to play innocent, but it was like clearly stated throughout the whole process that the teams also were working with them. That's why, when we ended up with the Nationals, that was part of it. Where part of it, and then the Royals tried to act like, oh, like wasn't us, but kind of is you. Yeah, you could have said, no, we want to keep them. Because they had basically right of first refusal to start switching.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was also part of the point, was just to like make everything more regionalized, so you'd keep all your affiliates close to the parent club. So
the one that I wonder about is Tucson.
Tucson is interesting,
right?
Yeah, but it's like the warm Pecos market where it's like,
I cannot believe it's a Pecos market.
It's kind of aggravating that it is. It's just like such a waste of potential. It's like seeing someone driving 40 in like a GT. It's like, but why though? Like, sure you can, but like, why though?
Yeah, I think there's probably issues with maybe facilities there as well, but you feel like a place like Tucson could get behind having a minor league team, possibly for Oakland. That would make a lot of sense. Now Vegas.
Yeah.
Something to think on.
Yeah, it definitely is. But
well, also, because we just don't know what's happening in that AAA team that Vegas has too. That's an interesting moving part here.
I mean, they could just keep the AAA team around too.
Yeah, they could. I think they will.
It just makes it, because it's basically a St. Paul Twins situation.
Yeah, if they decide that the AAA team isn't going to be able to do double duty with them, if they're borrowing that stadium, that would be another interesting one where I could see them trying to scoop Tucson for a little bit. But we're into the weeds on that now.
To use that as the jumping off point to transition of Pacific Northwest talk into more Southern talk. If Waco gets built, then
Yeah, man, that is fascinating. So the rumors coming about would be what we a bunch came out this week. The Waco ballpark was being looked at.
yeah, Baton Rouge
what else do we
possibly
have?
getting upgraded.
Baton Rouge being talked about. The Mississippi Braves are moving out of Pearl, Mississippi.
Yeah. Was it the Mudcats are moving from Zebulon to Wilson?
Yes, they are. And there's already, I've now heard rumors of multiple leagues eyeing up Raleigh because that's right outside of Raleigh.
I mean, that's a really
We've got, this is on the heels of the Shreveport.
Yeah, the Shreveport thing, we talked about that a while back.
And Murfreesboro a few weeks ago, talking about the American Association sniffing around there. So, yeah, it seems like this could get really interesting.
Fort Worth is always, Fort Worth is always a possibility too, although their ballpark is not good.
Yeah.
But if you got a motivated person, you could get in there.
Right, exactly. And again, that comes down to in Texas, depends on what your weather is. You might have to burn a lot of dates on just it's hot weather. But Texans, they're used to it. So different. Won't go down that rabbit hole. But I think it's worth saying.
Yeah, South Metro area is worth something.
Am I crazy to think this is all going to be at the mercy of what the American Association wants to do? Because I think the American Association has a greater hunger for getting south because of Cleburne. Because they already have that weird foothold down there that they'd love to, probably bolster that and get some teams around it. That was my read, but I could be off.
See, here's the thing. I think it's just less of a Cleburne thing and more of a they want to expand. They want to gobble up markets. I think the Atlantic League is kind of like they'll take a market when they find it, but I think they're also kind of trying to get their own house in order before they do anything else, which
I agree.
Inherently, I don't think is a bad decision. I think that's probably the right call to make sure.
Sorry, I talked over you again. I've been noticing. Yeah, I've noticed we've been doing that. It's on me. It's my probably my sound setup. But we talked about in the Q&A. I think we both agree they got to fix what they have before they start finding new stuff.
Yeah, it absolutely is the case. And so I don't blame them for that. The Frontier League doesn't make any sense to go to Texas, so they shouldn't even be considering the possibility. You're already a pretty wide spread out league. Any more spread out, it's basically going to be an AL, NL, and MLB type situation where it's like you got to do them up in the pods, and the pods seldom ever play each other. Like, it'd have to be that. The travel expense would just be too great. Already, that league had a lot of pushback from travel expense. So I can't imagine members would be cool with being like, oh, yeah, by the way, we're going to send you to Baton Rouge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could maybe see some of the more East Coast options, because among all the ones that came out, there are, the time-tested favorites that every time we mention them, we mention the same issues attached to them. Everyone knows those markets, no need to rehash them. So, like, I could see some of those East Coast ones being somewhat appealing, but even then, I mean, how far outside the current footprint, i.e., how far south do you want to go before you say, like, okay, well, if I'm Quebec, do I want to drive to, like, Virginia or something? Or if I'm in, like, say, Gateway, do I really want to go all the way to, like, New Jersey more often than I already have to?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
exactly. Unless they're going for a hard pod system where there's not a lot of interplay between the groupings. I don't see it being as practical, or the league at least being as hungry. And then, if there's some competition for any of these markets, I gotta assume the American Association's got the job.
Exactly.
They're already down there. I'll say I've heard rumors of the Frontier League looking in North Carolina. I know you feel that is impractical. I'm just telling you what I'm getting.
I know. I just feel like it's a tough situation to work in a league that already gets pushback about travel.
I would argue if they're doing that, they're probably also looking at other markets too. That would make it more feasible. It would not be the only move. What's the phrasing? If this was on field roster moves, you sign somebody and drop somebody else. It's the whatever move. It's the dropping of a player because you're adding one. There's probably a second team coming if they decide to make a move like that, so that it's not like, and now we're down North Carolina. Oh,
it's the old Oakland Davis Tango.
It's the corresponding roster move. There we go. I got it. Good Lord. I knew work that around. That. Yeah. I think, my feelings on any New Orleans based move, but I also know it's basically impractical at this point in time because of the money that would be needed to switch that field back to baseball. Hate it.
Yeah. A Shreveport Baton Rouge thing is way more practical on that front.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, sure, I've always valued the Louisiana move. That's something I really believe in. Kind of, again, we talk about the value of having just at least one team close by you and how much that can help out. Just think about it. If you play 10 of your away games there in a year, that's, if you're playing 50 away games, that's 20% of your away schedule. If you want to, you don't even need to stay at a hotel. That's huge. Yeah. So something to think on.
Yeah, it's just like the overall geography of it. If you get Cleburne in there, you have 2 Louisiana teams, maybe a lot. That's my one thinking on it. Because the problem and the pushback I've seen online about it is Louisiana's a big college state.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be fighting against a large push of like LSU, La Tech, Tulane, a few others there. What would be like UL Lafayette. I'm trying to think of some of the other bigger ones that are down there. You have a lot of larger schools, really the point. So you're already fighting that. And if you go into Baton Rouge, I mean, it's kind of a Lexington situation where it's like UK is king here, Baton Rouge, LSU is king here. It's just the reality of it. And come the fall, you're not playing Saturday home games. You know better than to do that, to try and go head to head with Go Tigers. That ain't going to go.
Yeah.
So you can't do that.
But though, I mean, they wouldn't be the only market like that. So it's a doable.
I'm not saying that's the whole
country
thing to consider. On top of that, Shreveport had a team before. They still need a lot of work to make it work. I don't think it's impossible. It's just like, I think 2 is a risky thing to do at the same time or in quick succession. I think it's 1, make it work. 2 after that, as kind of a thing. I understand the value of going 2 at a time on it, because then you have the other team that's like a crutch situation. I get it, but like there's also significantly more risk to the league itself when you're going to markets like that that are a little unproven. And
the American Association has done the odd number team before, I think for 2 or 3 seasons. So
yeah,
not that it's ideal. I was just going to DM them and ask them if they could. I know, actually, even like fully odd number. I got to pull. Was it the American? Yeah, I think it was the American. There was a couple of years in there when I was looking back at their media guide where I think they had like 13 or some weird number of teams.
They're not afraid of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would love to get a copy of what those schedules look like, because that's a fascinating sort of puzzle to put together, but they'll do it. They'd rather do that than shoehorn something in, or hell, put a team on hiatus, not to shade the Atlantic League, but like,
it's hard
just
not to.
Weird choice. It's such a weird choice. So yeah, it's something to look at.
Yeah, if you know what year they did the odd number team, they have the media guy going back every year to 2012. So
that's where I saw it, if I recall. The only thing in my head, I'm like, could that have been the Frontier? But it wasn't the Frontier League. No.
Any event, back to the topic on hand, which is Southern expansion is hard because you can't go into too many risky markets at the same time without endangering the league as a whole. So that's why I'm more of a fan of like, okay, let's do one safer market and one kind of experimental market at the same time.
That's
we're gonna do it. Let's do it like that. And like, I just consider Louisiana to be kind of one of the more experimental, even if there has been a team there in the past. It's just there's a lot of concerns I have with that. Not to mention,
it's a fair read, yeah.
Yeah. Plus, the one thing I think we're kind of undercutting in this is Louisiana is a state that is suspect to weather. Besides just humidity and hot, flooding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know where the ballparks are. It's a flood zone, but like, if your fan base is getting flooded out like every 3 months, that's a bit of a concern.
It should be okay where they're at. I'm confident in that one.
Okay. Sam, we go for Baton Rouge, or
I would say with either.
Okay.
Hold on, let me see here. Let me double check. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Shreve. What I'm saying is, I guess if they were to put the money into it that's needed, I don't think there would be something in place where they wouldn't have to really worry about that as much.
Okay.
That's my take on that. Plus, there'll probably be a turf field, which also helps. Anyway, neither here nor there. I'm more or less being like thinking through my knowledge of coastal weather pattern.
Yeah, I was just more or less concerned about like if your fan base that you expect to spend money on a luxury thing is constantly having to rebuild their home. They're probably not going to be liable to spend money on, going to a baseball game.
Well, I would say, yeah. I'm just checking my thought process on this one, but I would say for both markets, it can be a little squirrely on without a flood, the income around the area and how much disposable income there is. That you could say the same for Pearl, Mississippi as well.
Fair. I maybe we should switch to Mississippi while we're still talking about this and while we got a little bit of time to still go over it. Thoughts on that Pearl/Jackson market there?
I don't know what to make of it. I'm not as well versed on that one. I don't. Did anything strike you? I mean, it's something that's been rumored for a little bit occasionally, but nobody seemed overly excited about it.
Like
it does seem like if you're already going that way, sure. I wouldn't move to get to Pearl. I wouldn't expand the way the Pioneer League did, expanding to get to Oakland. I wouldn't make the move to get to Pearl, but Pearl might be a viable option if you are looking to do the even teams.
That's kind of where I'm at because like Murfreesboro is really Nashville. So you're talking Nashville to Jackson. That's not exactly close. I mean, like you're looking at it here, like I'm got it pulled up and it's like, okay, so basically what we're looking at distance wise isn't that much different than like, I guess some of the other ones in this league, like Lincoln to Fargo would be a comparable. That may be a little too far, but like I overall agree with the point though, where it's like you don't rush for this, but I don't hate the market. It clearly can support a team. Now, granted, with a AA team of like the South's team, so like that changes things a little bit. So I'm not gonna pretend like it's not, but like I put like more or less this. If you're going for like say Mobile, which is another market we've discussed in the past, it needs some work and whatnot. But like if you're going for Mobile, then Jackson/Pearl makes an awful lot of sense in that regard, right? Like you can go ahead and pick those two. They're nice and close to each other. If you want Murfreesboro, it's kind of like the outlier, sure, but I'd rather go with like either Shreveport or Baton Rouge instead. If we're going to do that, like honestly, Shreveport and Jackson make a lot of sense. They're both right on what is that, I-20?
Yeah, it would. That was my point. That would probably be the main move I would think about trying to make. Yeah, but again, who knows what goes into either of those markets. Shreveport, I believe they have a lot of work ahead. I think Jackson has at least a lot of reno work ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that all depends on, obviously, Jackson would want to get an affiliate team back. But,
right, yeah.
For the meanwhile, while you just throw an indie team in there, I mean, like it would work for the time being.
I mean, I think looking at it, that Pearl Mississippi market could maybe do 2,000 a night if things are rolling well. But I'm like 1,500. And that's if, again, things are going well.
Do we know what their affiliated total was for attendance?
It's about 2,500. The reported attendance. Alleged attendance.
So about 20% drop off. That's not terrible.
Yeah.
All things considered. Yeah, I see. The thing is, though, I feel like the American Association's at the point where they're like, look, we want markets that want to be here.
Yes, I agree.
So if they're not going to get a market that wants to be here, then they're not going to bother even looking at it.
Yeah.
That's why I think they're more into like a Murfreesboro or possibly like a Mobile than like, say, a Pearl.
I got nothing to disagree with there.
Yeah. So with that said, let's see, is there anything else? We want to circle back to Waco because we mentioned them, but we didn't really talk about them.
I don't have much to add there. It's just going to see there's so much up in the air still. Will things get funded? Will it get public support? Will it get voted through? Will it be affiliated? Because that seems like a possibility as well.
My only concern with Waco is if you're not adding another team in the South, you're basically just saying, hey, Claiborne, here's a friend. And like that's not bad, but like you still have the same problem, only now double for everybody else in the league.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, at least then you can knock out 2 road trips going down there.
I guess, but I feel like you need to add like another team in there somewhere. Like I don't know,
an in between stop.
Yeah,
probably, or at least another one that's also down there.
Yeah, like either you got to go and toss a team and say like Oklahoma, or a team in like I mean, like you could go Shreveport, and then you have the makings of a division, which
Yeah,
I mean, just continue down the rabbit hole we went on Twitter. I mean, like if you go Waco, Cleburne, Shreveport, Jackson, that's not a terrible division.
agreed.
And in theory, you could toss like one other. I mean, Mobile's kind of jumping out there, but they're not that much different from like a Baton Rouge, and Baton Rouge is probably closer for everybody. So I mean, like you could do that, I guess, and that's a 5-team setup down there, and then everybody else is a 6-team setup. So I mean, like you can make it work for a little while.
But now it's a big gamble, and a lot of new markets having good momentum.
Those other markets too, is it breaks the rule of the AA wants markets that want to be there. So
exactly right, and that's a big question mark on just about really any new market, unless they're explicitly like, "We'll take anything, we don't care, we're hungry for it."
Exactly. So that's the problem you get there. I think we've touched on just about all of it. I mean, like we could have went a little bit more on this Epsilon Raleigh thing, but I don't think we really need to talk about how valuable that market is. You really could do a lot with it. It feels like a good market. If the ballpark was a little bit better, and I'll admit I haven't really looked into much, I could see maybe some Atlantic League interest, but again, they got to get their own house in order before they do anything else. So
I could see Atlantic League interest if Gastonia doesn't work out.
That.
Keep a team down there with High Point.
True. Honestly, like I almost wish that market was open for 24, because I'd almost say like put the team there while Gastonia gets it together, and then you could just have 3 in North Carolina.
Yeah, so the two things I've thought of when it comes to Raleigh to consider, because that's a really good point, would be the Gastonia thing I just mentioned.
Yeah.
But then because I'm trying to do the math, I think Gastonia's contract with the league is up, the initial one, probably in 2 years, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that is when the Mudcats are scheduled to leave the stadium.
Okay.
And at the same time, I think that's also the end of the contract on the Jackals in the Frontier with Hinchcliffe. So there's a couple leagues that could be looking for some solutions. And if the Frontier League decides they do want to move south and maybe has another market by then, I could see them toying with that idea.
And I'm looking at this here, and like High Point's a bit closer to Raleigh than Gastonia too, for what that's worth. So there's something there. There's something there.
I think somebody would go to that ballpark. Just a question of will they do the summer college thing or will they go Indy Ball?
I still wish they would have built that ballpark in Virginia Beach, man.
I know, man. I saw it again on the the Wikipedia the other day. Yeah. I was like, damn.
It would have been so perfect.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Well, that screams Myrtle Beach Pelican type success.
Yeah, I think there's something to that.
Like you have obviously need the right management, but still. But yeah, overall, like Raleigh's appeal is, pretty obvious. I don't think we got to go into too much detail about that as to why teams would want to go there. There may be a little bit of discussion on, whether or not the Frontier should go there or not, but I think we covered that fairly well. So I think that covers just about all the major markets here. Obviously, we'll be circling back to that as time goes on, but yeah, that just about does it as far as stuff we have to talk about this week. I don't think we missed anything. I mean, Bud Harrelson died too, so maybe mention that. But I mean,
which is crazy to like be an afterthought because he's such an important person. I mean, talk about people who have been integral to the Ducks. He was CEO, and where he was, what was the position he had? Was he Atlantic League's first president? Right? No. Yeah.
Hold on.
I'm trying to think. I think he was the first one. Think back.
Let me just go to the website. We'll get it right, and then we'll.
Fair enough.
Yep. Obviously, it was also the Ducks manager for a bit, I believe. So.
Yeah. Oh, he did. I know that much. One manager of the year.
Co-founded. He was co-founder of the Ducks alongside Bolton and Atlantic League's first president. As the circus startup, it was in its startup phase. Harrelson, along with Joe Klein, Sparky Lyle, Butch Hobson, Rick Cerrone, and Willie Upshot, helped provide the ALPB with instant on-field credibility and was vital to building the Ducks' inaugural roster in 2000.
Yeah, the connection I had was as a former Wilmington Blue Rock employee. He
Yeah.
He was involved with the Blue Rocks ownership back in the day in Wilmington. And I think he was up with that group with Frank Bolton, who initially tried to do the minor league team in Long Island, which stemmed the creation of the Atlantic League, if I'm correct about, I think Bub was involved with all that still, cause I don't see where he would have gotten uninvolved then re-involved throughout his sort of the path I'm following of his very long and very much sort of not all over the place in a bad way, but like truly like covered a lot of ground in baseball over his life. So he, again, major leaguer, played for the Mets, played for the Phillies as well as I recall in the 70s. So yeah, hell of a life, man.
Yeah, and it really was baseball life in there. So it's been a sad start to the 24th year. Right?
I know, man.
Like every week we come on and talk about someone dying. Like hopefully we can break that trend next week.
That would be
I really
nice,
don't want to keep doing that. So
not great. But yeah, beyond that, did we miss anything?
Not particularly.
So. No, I don't believe so.
Yeah. So then I guess we could wrap it here. You got plugs, I'm sure, so I'll let you do those, and then we'll get out of here after that. Yeah,
just Indy Ball Nation on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Got a few things, well, as always, in the works. Just depends on when I can get to sit down and edit them. And the transaction sheet, which is linked or pinned at the top of my Twitter, is being updated. Huge update yesterday, doing the American Association updates today. Finally catching up. Like a month of transactions where I was doing other stuff, and I was like, I'm sure there weren't that many transactions, and there were. So
community meme walk-in places on fire.
It was exactly that vibe. Yeah, I'm like, oh my, you were making transactions over the holiday. Okay, great. But yeah, that's about the long short of it. Nothing too crazy this week.
Yeah. So Indy Ball Pod on Twitter and Indy Ball everywhere else. The plan, which is now looking kind of doubtful, admittedly, is to start next week doing all my content stuff, rolling out stuff. Hopefully going for 2 Instagram posts a week, and then after that going to 2 posts a week, and then either a video or article as well. So hopefully 3 or 4 pieces of content weekly. It's looking a little bit doubtful because I got to sort through everything for weeks 1 and 2 on this still. It's all contract purchase data. We're going to do a bunch of stuff with that. So I still got to look through all that. But yeah, that's the plan there. Hopefully that'll get started for next week or this week while you're listening to it. So if it's
I mean, that's you're talking to the person who every week I'm like, oh, content coming this week. Finally, I'm just like, oh no, I'm editing stuff. I'll try.
Yeah. So generally that's the thing. Keep an eye on the socials, and I guess Indy Ball Report podcast on YouTube as well. We might put stuff out there. So yeah, that's about all we have. Yeah. So I guess until next time, don't forget to play ball.